past. And I tried to confirm this with existing studies on marriage, and I think it's safe to say that it's within the normal stages of marriage. So the first one is what I call this is so right. If you are newly married and this is a stage where what we call the honeymoon stage, it feels that everything is doing right, doing well, the best foot forward, and there's so much physical attraction, emotional attraction, and even sexual attraction happening on. It is what you call the this is so right stage. The second stage is something is wrong. You begin to see that your spouse is not that perfect. There are things that you don't appreciate, things that you dislike about that person. It begins to show up because you're now living together and you're able to see a bigger side of the person. Before, in the first stage, as they call it, love is blind. But with the second stage, seems that you're beginning to see more, and that's okay. And you should go through that stage. The third stage is you are wrong. So it is the blame game, and you're beginning to ask yourself, did I make the right decision? You begin to see that this person is not making me as happy as I hope that the person will make me happy. So that's you are wrong. And I think as a couple, we have to learn personal responsibilities, and I believe that if you are not 100% happy with the Lord, no person in this world can really make you happy. Even if you're married to the perfect person, which does not exist really, or the kindest person, but if you are not happy and content with your God, no marriage, no person, no individual can make you happy. So the blame game is you are wrong. You're trying to put the finger on someone except yourself. You are wrong. And I think many fights will be based on that. No, you are wrong, you are wrong, you do the blame game. I'm just making this short so Kuya Lem will have more time. The fourth stage is this is so wrong. It is a stage of cynicism, there's sense of hopelessness, and to me, this is the point where a lot of people will give up on the marriage. They say, this is not working, and they fight endless fights and with other people. It's simply putting a wall, they stop communicating, and the very essence of marriage is no longer there. But I've seen in many Filipino contexts, or maybe even in, correct me if this is also true with the Chinese context, that because of the social pressure, that despite of the unhappiness, you simply stay in the marriage for the kids, so that people will not, because people will say something is the wrong thing to do, blah, blah, blah. But in some contexts, they'll simply give up on the marriage because it's not working. This is so wrong. The next stage, which is number 5, is what I call, I am wrong. You begin to realize that you're also at fault in making that marriage be more problematic or to be more in trouble. There's more introspection in this relationship. You begin to see that maybe I'm unhappy because I am making myself unhappy, and maybe I'm expecting too much from my spouse. So I am wrong. It is the stage of being broken and realizing that you are both two imperfect people hoping to have a perfect marriage, which will not happen. I believe that you can have two imperfect people having an awesome marriage by the grace of God despite the many imperfections. The 6th stage is what I call, we can make this right. This is a grace period where you begin to see there's so much hope in this marriage that despite the many challenges of life, the ups and downs, the traumas, the crisis of the marriage, you can say, we can make this right. And you're no longer dependent on yourself, not dependent on your ability, because Even though a lot of people are very, very smart, but they don't know how to have a good marriage. Because we don't know how, because of sin, because of the fallen nature, because of ego, because of our own issues in life. We all have our own sense of rightness and wrongness. And I think this stage is we can make this right, and your goal is for you to have a common template on how you will fight, on how you will address different issues of life, and wanting to honor God in this relationship. We can make this right. And the last stage is, this is so right, which is very different from the first one. This is so right, very shallow. The last stage is, it is more on the realization because of God, because of God's grace and His ability to intervene in our situation, that despite the many imperfections of life, this marriage is worth living, worth surviving, and you can thrive in this marriage, and you believe that this marriage is already a gift, not just to your family, but to the church and to this generation. So wherever stage you are right now, I hope that we will all reach that stage. That the first stage is simply, this is so right, honeymoon stage, but the seventh stage, this is so right, because the God who is able to change us and break us will bring His goodness, His faithfulness in our lives. So that's my 7-minute thing for today. God bless.
Thank you. Thank you, Pastor Herald. I'm going to make a presentation for us to make this as a framework, for us in our discussion. There are only 2 questions here, and hopefully after this, there will be more questions. Now, we are here separated from a little bit, but I'd like to say that, we're all the same. We are all the same in this journey of marriage. It's not going to be easy. Married life is not easy. It's a long journey. It's been like 30 plus years for my wife and me. There were times when I would say it's hard. But we're here not just because of our education. Probably we have learned something that we can share, but this meeting will be more of a learning from each other, mutual learning. We are not the experts here. We are learning each other. So I'd like to present just an area of problems in marriage. There are a lot of areas that we can think of in marriage, but I think this one is very important, and it's about communication. I will just probably stand so I can see here. Here's my introduction. I put it here. Most, if not all of us, couples, sincerely desire to communicate well with our spouse in our own unique and special ways, right? However, communication is a skill we all need to develop. This session aims to help us improve our communication skills so that we can become better partners of our humanity. I think I have well said that. I've said that well. Here's an illustration from Google I got. This is the nicest conversation we had in weeks. Let's not spoil it by talking. There's communication without talking, right? We had a seminar in Bethel, and this couple, 70 plus years old at the time, said, "We do not quarrel." I said, "Why?" "We didn't talk so much." Here's another one. "You always complain that I don't know how to show my emotions, so I made these signs." There are people who do not know how to communicate, and so signs or writings will do it. But we'll just define for a while communication because it's important. It's an exchange of thoughts, messages, or information by speech, writing, or behavior. When you have this message, what is this? If you would say like this, that's if you would say like this, that makes ladies here in the Philippines so cheap. You can just call it like that. If you would say it this way, that's a fight, right? For an Indian, if you would say that's not for Indian. So I mean, there are signals. Now, can you imagine for a while? You came from different backgrounds. Some are pure Chinese, some are pure Filipinos. But what if you got married and it's cross-cultural marriages? the disparity is farther, and therefore the adjustment might be harder and challenging. Look at this, in communication now, actual content is only 7%. Now people would like to appreciate people who could communicate well, articulate well. In his book, Carnegie, Win Friends and Influence People, very articulate. But the content is only 7%. Tone of voice is 38%, even bigger. Look at this. The nonverbal is 55%. If this research is true, by Albert Mitubian, I think there is an area that we need to work out in our relationship. In the area of communication that is not spoken. And so, this is just an example of how complicated communication is all about. I don't have to go through with this because of our time. But there is a message sent here, and there's a response. You know, God is in the middle. Brother Aaron is so familiar with the Jewish tradition. And you know, you can just include God in your conversation to make it more religious. But actually, in reality, it's just using the name of the Lord in vain. I will not dwell on this, but I'd like to simplify this communication by this. Girls, that's how you ladies can communicate. So many, all of those, looking at all parts of, you know. What about the guys? If this is true, then there's a big issue in communication. Because ladies are more detailed, while we guys are just one step. I'll make it very simple, simpler than this. This is coming from Jack Russell. I adapted it from Jack Russell. Person A and person B. Person A looks at the tree, blue, on his side. Person B looks at the tree, green, on her side. My question is, are they both right? They're both right, right? And they could also be wrong. Now, with just this illustration alone, it can create a lot of problems. Looking at the object with your lenses. Now, it would, your people who are not part of the relationship will be dragged in. You're like my father. You're like your father. You're like your mother. And all of this. Generation, you will drag these people inside the relationship because you are seeing that thing in your perspective. Are you following? If I could share, I think we have our own or personal issues in this, but did you hear about people quarreling because of toothpaste? Yes. Because somebody would press toothpaste in the middle, and the wife would want it pressed at the end. And that's a quarrel. My wife and I had, maybe I'll just be open, this conversation is very open. My wife and I, when we got married, it was an issue of washing the plates. I would wash the plate, and then I would put it on a dryer. And then after it's dried, I would put it in the cupboard. That's me. I grew up as I'm the eldest person. I would wipe, and I'm the eldest person in the family of 4 boys. My parents were pastors. He was so strict on us, and so we have to learn to do a lot of things as a guy. My wife would wash dishes. She would put it, on that dish dryer and just leave it there. And we will be eating, and it was a sore to my eye, seeing the plates not inside the cupboard. Now it was a matter of right and wrong, right? It's just a matter of perspective. But it hurt me. I was so angry that it took years for us to resolve the problem. I tell you, it took years. You're laughing because you have something to. So looking at different perspectives. Now, I'd like us to resolve this. What do you think? How should this person B, A and B resolve this issue here? Let me hear from you. How could this be resolved? If this was my problem, this was my problem, and you are my counselor, how will you help us, my wife and I, having this problem?
Sometimes you go to the A side, sometimes you go to the B side, so you will see the two sides.
Bingo. So you are not only one-sided. You are two-sided, right? And there are a lot of issues in married life. Our educational background, where we came from, our age. My wife is Ilongga, I'm Cebuano. Cebuano is, tough, strong. Ilonggas are the, malumanay. He will say, I'm angry at you, but already sharpening, I'm angry at you. Really. So we have our own, he came from a military background. I came from a pastoral background. So can you imagine the fights and the issues that we have gone through all those years? It's amazing, like what I told Pastor Herald this morning. Imperfect parents can still produce good kids. Maybe there's more like I would say here, but I'll just stop here for us to just start talking about our activity this afternoon. Pastor Aaron, I'll give this mic to you.
So if you have question, you can raise it now. You guys can look at these questions. Somehow we turned up about 10. So there's more than one. Okay, Brother Pastor Lemuel has given us a challenge to discuss this. How do you solve that problem?
I'll try to get all the easy questions, then I'll let Kuya Lemuel answer the more difficult questions, and the impossible questions will be Sister Rose. There's a very interesting question here is, how should our argument end? How should our argument end? There's a book by, I'm getting old, there's a good book called The Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse by John Gottman. And they say that his batting average in knowing the success of the couple is very high. According to some opinion, it's 97%. He'll see the couple for an hour and he has a 97% accuracy knowing if the couple will stay together or they'll decide to leave the relationship. And he said that there are 4 ways to fight that you should avoid. The first one is criticism, where you criticize the person. And he said that there's no place in a healthy relationship if you criticize and you avoid the questions. The other issue is contempt. What is contempt? You're really forcing the person to get angry. You know which button to push to make that person angry, and you push that button. That's contempt. The third one is defensiveness. He said that you should avoid defensiveness. Your spouse or the husband will bring up an issue, and instead of resolving the issue, you will also bring up your own issue against that person. So you're being defensive. And he said the last one is stonewalling, when you will decide not to talk to each other anymore. And he said, if you have that in the relationship, it is the apocalypse. In your relationship, it is the end of the world based on the 4 horsemen of Revelation. How should it end? To me, one of the things that I do is I try to teach a couple how to fight, because they will fight. Sooner or later, it's just a matter of time. Unless they don't see each other or they don't talk to each other, then they will not fight. But they will always fight. So I teach them to fight, and you begin with the core values of the relationship. I believe that respect should always be there. Love should always be there. God should always be put in the picture. Number 2 is, how will you fight? Is walking out of the argument okay? You have to talk about it. If there's a need to go out for a few minutes until the emotion will subside, but making sure in your agreement, we'll talk again, but I don't want to talk to you while I'm really angry, or else I'll say things that I might regret. It's based on your agreement. My wife and I, we have a style. And I'm sure all of you have a style, and that is, even in the middle of the argument, heated argument, and I'll decide to hold her hand, she cannot refuse me, because that is our covenant, our rules of the fight. Or if she wants to hold my hand, even though I'm so angry at her, I cannot refuse her hand. So it's hard to fight while you're holding hands, enough. So after a while, the emotion will go down, and we're able to resolve the issues with less emotion. So you have to come up with rules of the fight, and you begin with the core values of your relationship as a Christian couple. And how will it end? It should always end with a common goal. I believe that love, authentic love, plus justice, meaning fairness, will result to peace. There has to be authentic love, meaning not just eros, not just philia stergo, but agape working. Then justice, fairness, that's simply bahala ka na, sige, huwag tayo mag-away, you to stop it, okay, you win. That's injustice. There has to be justice, fairness, so you will achieve peace in the relationship. So, the more difficult question.
If spouse does not like you, serve it. Is this a question or a statement? If spouse does not like you, to serve it. Really, what do you think this question saying? Mayo? Is this saying, help me understand, is this saying if your spouse or your husband does not want to serve you, are you going to just give in? Is this the idea? I wonder if, I guess. Before I would answer this question, can we just leave this later? What is the most embarrassing experience that you have as a husband and as a father? How did you handle the situation on experience? I think this is good for older people, huh? A lot of embarrassing moments, right? I think the first embarrassing moment I had when we were newly married was, we had a visitor at home. We were teaching at Emmanuel Bible College. And you were still establishing the role at home. The husband is this, the wife is this. And so there my wife was, like, he was making photos, only in front of this person. So it was really not just embarrassing, but it was even devastating experience for me. And this person was our friend. We call him Tatay. And so maybe she had the freedom to do that, not knowing that I was hurt. I was embarrassed. I feel like I was a small kid. I felt like I melted, inside. By the way, guys, according to research, while we guys are strong outside, we're fragile inside. Gary Oliver in his book, men have feelings, emotions too. If you would just allow me to just explain that for a while, it's like this. In a family, I don't know in the US or the Chinese, but generally it's like this. When a child, when a girl at home would cry, it's okay for ladies to cry. But when a little boy would cry, the parents would say, it's not good for guys to cry. And so there is that stereotype thinking, of these are the traits of ladies and the traits of guys. And so men grow up with that, I have to be macho. I don't have to be assistive in my ways. And so because of that, emotions are hindered inside. And so because of that, there's that fragility inside. There is that we are fragile inside because we cannot just speak up. And so I had that feeling when Rose was doing that to me. How I handled it, I could have reacted and shouted at her. That would be an option. Maybe a good option for me. to show that I am in charge. But I did not. I was civil at that time. I brought her inside the room. I told her, don't do it again. I was already angry. But you know, when you're newly married, you still have a lot of patience. You know. So I was bouquets in my thoughts, and I was just like, don't do this again. So that was resolved. But I did not know that many years later it came up, because that was a traumatic experience for me. I'm used to just command people at home. I'm the eldest, and I was commanded by this daughter of a military guy in front of a person that I was so embarrassed. So I was able to handle that by just singling her inside, not talking to her in front of the public, but just reprimanded her. As a husband, as a father also, what was my embarrassing moment as a father? When your kids are grown up, they will talk to you straight. Now, my kids, I decided that my kids will not just be a typical Filipino. I stayed with an American couple when I was growing up. And with other not good things from Americans, I had this good thing that I should imitate. Sorry for saying that with that. All of us are the same perhaps. So this guy, when he was still like 3 years old at home, and we will be conversing as an adult in the sala, this little kid would there and join us in a conversation. If it was done in Filipino family or Chinese perhaps, we would tell the kid, just go inside your room. That would, we would resolve all the problems. But this guy was jumping and all that. But the family was entertaining him, and so he was part of the conversation. So I said, good idea for me when I get married, when I have kids, I will apply this. To make the long story short, I did that. So kids could tell me straight, to the daddy. The problem is when you have an in-laws. My dad would tell me straight, and my mother-in-law would tell me, she stayed with us for a while, said, you are not supposed to talk to your dad like that. I told my mother-in-law, you don't have to quarrel with your mother-in-law, or she will be you will be an outlaw to her. So I told her, Nanay, it's okay. It's okay. These kids can talk to us like that. So they were growing up, and they would confront us. Even our mistakes, they would, tell us straight. One point when my daughter I was angry with my daughter. Oh, no, it was the other way around. She was angry at me, and I was reprimanding her. And she told me, Dad, didn't you tell us that it's okay to be angry? I was thinking about it, yeah, right. It's okay for you to get angry. And I should be able to handle your anger as parents. Are you following me? Sometimes our kids would behave, and sometimes we are the ones, younger than them, because of our behavior in response to their traumas. So those were the most embarrassing moment I had, how I handled it. So I did not pretend. I said, yeah, okay, you can do that to daddy, you can do that to your husband. And in view of that, I think as husbands here, we need to have a strong, Bruce would say this in our class, Bruce Lemuel. An egg who is boiled egg, when it fell on the floor, it will not spill over it. But an egg that is not cooked, when it spills over the floor, when it falls to the floor, it will spill over. He was saying, we should be like the cooked boiled egg as a person, that we will be able to handle even these traumas of our kids and even with our wife. I hope that answered this question.
Maraming salamat. Any additional, Pastor? Or?
Kids will say things parents regret. We were going to see her grandmother in a nursing home, not expected to live. So we were talking about it in the car on the way over. We didn't know how closely our children were listening when we talked about life expectancy of Grandma. We're in the room visiting her grandma, and our son walked up to her bed and he said, Grandma, when are you going to die?
The lesson is when you think they're not listening, they're actually listening. Ate? Okay. So I'll read the next question. You're actually asking a lot of good questions. I don't know if how we're going to answer some of those, but let's learn from one another. And if there's anything that you would like to share that we can learn from, then we're here, we're all ears. Having known or observed as a family or husband and wives with successful family or marriage, what is your principle? Why is your principle? How did you arrive in your principle? So it will require a term paper to answer this question. No? Having known or observed as a family or husband and wives with successful family or marriage, what is your principle? Why is your principle? How did you arrive in your principle? There's no easy answer to this question, but let me begin with sharing from the book of John Scott Peck. He said, life is difficult. But at the same time, when you begin to wrestle with what life is all about, then eventually life will have more meaning, and what is difficult seems to be not that difficult anymore. So you begin to embrace the reality that marriage is not easy. It becomes a lot easier to simply realize that your husband is not perfect, your wife is not perfect, parenting is not perfect. What is the principle? There are so many things that can be said, but to me, when you put God at the very center of the relationship, then that marriage will work. It will require a lot of forgiveness. It's like the oil that will allow the marriage to move on, because I've seen that consciously or unconsciously, or based on our perception or maybe on reality, people will offend us, whether real or not. Perceived or not, people will offend us. We can also offend other people. So there has to be a lot of forgiveness. There has to be a lot of unity in that relationship. That there has to be people united in saying whatever happens, this is for life, in sickness or in health, for richer, for poorer, for better, for worse, till death do us part. Sometimes it has become simply words in weddings. But it is a covenant that we put God at the very center. In fact, I would say to couples, not even in a joke, to say, let's divorce, let's have an annulment. Words are powerful. And don't allow those words to be said in your marriage. If you had, then you have to ask for forgiveness, because it has no place in marriage, because it's your commitment. And maybe I can also add your willingness to fight, not for your right, but to fight for the relationship. That at the end of the day, the winner is not one, it's not the husband or the wife, but your marriage will come out stronger. And lastly, I'm sure people would like to add some more, that you have to have your own template. Na-mention ni Kuya Lemuel about the gray, the blue, the green. The goal of the marriage is to come up with your own template. She has a sense of what's right or what's wrong. He has a sense of what's right or what's wrong. But you have to come up with your own sense of rightness and wrongness as a couple. It will require a lot of communication. It will require sleepless nights. But you have to come up with your own family system. That what is good from our family of origin, will bring it in. And what is not so good, we'll try to work on it and bring you things to improve the relationship. And I think we as believers, our goal should be that the next generation that will come after us will even be better than the ones that we have. That's my prayer. My parents did their best. They did such a great job, but I hope that I'll do better, and I hope that my children will even do much better. So again, a lot of communication, a lot of talking, a lot of humility, but never forget putting God at the very center of everything. Ate Rose, alam ko meron ka gusto sabihin. I can sense it.
question was asked, I had to do a reflection. What was a turning point in my life? And I remember that time when I had to ask our eldest son. I had to go to him and ask for forgiveness. Because very new mother, very strict background, very idealistic things studied from Bible school. You wanted to apply everything to your very first child. So we tended to be very strict with GJ. And some of you know him. We were pastoring also at some point. We were teachers. So he was a reflection of us. He was representing us. So we wanted him to be perfect. And we imposed it upon him because anything he did would reflect upon us. So we became extra strict with GJ. And I realized later on that I was asking too much of my son. I was telling him things that I was not allowing him to be a child. I was expecting him to be a perfect child, and there's no such thing. So God has so convicted me that I had to go to GJ. I think he was grade. First time I asked forgiveness from him was he was grade 4. I had to do it again when he was in high school because I didn't learn my lesson very well. But I saw that when I went to him and said, I am really sorry, Mommy was wrong, and I should not have done it, it brought a lot of healing in my relationship with my son. So I said, that was one thing that really helped me to be very close with GJ. To the point that when we left the church that we were pastoring, he gave me a very good tribute when he told everybody and said, I can tell my mom anything. And he was in high school then. I really appreciated that. But for me, the turning point was when I was willing to tell my son I was wrong and Mommy is very sorry.
Thank you. Principle of template. I guess we have that in the Bible, right? For the husband, for the wife, and the kids. Husband, love your wives like Christ loved the church. That's actually, that statement is hard because Christ died on the cross for the church. Seriously, will I sacrifice for the sake of my wife? That's the essence of the word. Wives, submit to your husband as unto the Lord, in spite of imperfection. In spite of, not because when you are doing that, you are doing it as unto the Lord. Nobody is perfect. Children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. So the template is in the Bible. I think it's how we would apply those with the things that we have learned, the things that we're exposed to, and we will try to argue with God. I think if those templates are followed, then all of these things can fall into its place, but not overnight. Please, not overnight. Rose and I are we've been married for 30 plus years already. I'm 63, and 64, I'm 1 year older than me. We're still learning from each other. And we drive to the office, we would quarrel because he would backseat driving. And I got an article for her to read, this is, Anyway, we have decided to just argue. And then, after that we argue, at least we have made our point, and then we will move on. But we're old now, so maybe you're not there yet. Just go ahead and enjoy the process of this relationship. Another one. I'll ask this for you. Now, given limited resources in the family and knowing that the love language of your spouse is gifts, what is the appropriate or best response to the spouse expecting an expensive gift? When I read this question, my wife and I are a tandem in doing couple seminars among pastors and leaders. And that's our heart, when leaders are. And so she has a topic, specifically, her topic on languages of love. So I thought she would be able to answer this better than me, because that's her plate in our study. Would you please come back and just share some thoughts on this?
I don't intend to stay here.
She will be part of that.
Okay. If the love language is really gift, the gift doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how expensive the gift is. It's the thought that counts. So if the wife or if the beloved is expecting an expensive gift, I would want to know why that particular expensive gift. Is there a sentimental reason to it? Is there, I just want to know why first. Because if the love language is really gift, you know, like a boy who would, on his way home, would pick a flower from the roadside and give it to his mom, to that mom whose love language is gift, that flower from the roadside is very precious. If the love language is really gift. But if the price of the gift has to do with how much it will be appreciated, I would really question it. So maybe there's another reason to it. And I don't want to judge. Perhaps the person has a reason why that particular gift, which happened to be expensive, I'm not sure, but maybe I need to know more in order to understand that.
Yeah, I think the 5 love languages based on the book by Ate Rose, take it na dito. By Gary Chapman, ano? And in fact, there's a website that you can check in the 5 love languages assessment test online, and it will give you a perspective of your own love language or the love language of your family member, or even the love language of your boss, or it will help also in knowing the love language of your pastor. You know, it's very important to know where the person will respond the most. And with the love language of gifts, the gift is simply a physical representation of what is inside the heart. And I totally agree that if the issue is the brand or the price or whatever, then we have to look deeper. Why is it the brand? Because it's the thought that would count, and normally the gift that will really matter is a gift na, what we say in Filipino, yung pinag-isipan, something that you well thought of gift, that you know that something that you didn't even have to buy it, you made it for that person. You know, we have a member who will make, she's a special lady, she's not educated, but every year she would give me yung parang paper art na she will make a swan or whatever. She will give my daughter a small swan, she will give me a big swan, she'll give my wife a bigger swan, you know. That's her desire. It's something that's special to her. And to those people whose love language is love, they respond well to gifts. But this is also the same way that they give out love. It's the same way. And I think one of the questions here, so if you have different love languages, what do? You have to learn the love language of your spouse, and you have to adjust to the love language of your children. And I have my observation sometimes, because there is one child that responds to your love language, you have the same love language, you feel that that child loves you the most. So that child becomes your favorite. Kaya acts of service ka. Siya acts of service. Pagod ka, Mommy, what can I do for you? Blah, blah, blah. Maybe the other children are also expressing love to you, but but in a different way. So we have to be aware that maybe they're loving us, or your spouse is loving you, but hindi pa alam yung love language. So we have to learn the love language of the people around us. And si Gary Chapman, he tried it in different cultures, in different parts of the world. It seems that the 5 love languages seems to be a universal theory that can work well in relationships. So it's worth learning and practicing.
How can a couple build a stronger relationship. Looks like this is the theme for our camp. Stronger together. We'll be talking more on this in details over there. So make plans to come and join us. But in answer to this, I think it's gonna be a long process. You know, let's don't. There is no ideal relationship. There is real relationship. When I was pastor at church, one of my church members told me, Pastor, why are those people, on television, they communicate well? I said, lady, that is scripted. In real life, it's not like that. Isn't it nice when your spouse would accept you as who you are? When you're angry, you are angry this way. I think the hard part is like when you try to control the other person. We cannot do that. Now, strong foundation in relationship will be founded in the Word of God. There's no excuse in that. Why I just said that. All the others are skills that we have to work out as husband, as a wife. I hope that you will not just be saying, this is what Pastor said. I think what the Bible is saying should override what this pastor is saying. And when we know how to approach God in that way, I think there's a lot of wealth of resources that we can. We can go to the pastor for counseling, some areas, but actually in counseling, the client already knows the problem and he or she can even do better in the solution of the problem. Only that she does not know what to do it at that point in time, and just probably wanting to hear somebody, affirming it. But we have inside of us access to the Word of God. And so, how to make relationship stronger, it's going to be a process. Can I just say we'll talk more on this during the camp, okay?
So make sure you attend the camp and don't miss it. So we'll learn a lot. Another question, what is your passion as a husband and as a father? Why is it your passion? How does your passion contribute to your journey? There are two meanings for passion. One is suffering, the passion of the Christ. The other passion is something that you enjoy doing. So, what do you want me to talk about? The suffering of a husband or the passion of a husband? I think the question is something that gives life to your spirit, that excites you, the passion. To me, I have different passions. In the ministry, it is the family. And as I'm getting older now, I do a lot of ministry for the OFWs. But the passion that I do is helping older pastors. So I travel around and bless the pastors. Another passion that I have is something that is painful, and that is to challenge the parents to make sure that the family is safe, because I had a lot of cases. The father is not aware that 3 of his daughters have been molested, abused when they were young by a son that they adopted. So I have to tell the sisters, we have prepare them in telling the parents, because the father is serving the Lord and he has to be aware of what is happening. So one of the passions that I do is not that enjoyable, but I think it's important, and that is to remind the parents to make sure that the home is safe now, especially for OFWs and even for pastors. Personally, I have a passion. I like to bike, I like to hike. That's also my passion. I have a lot of passion. As a husband, I'm going to have a date with my daughter. We're going to Puerto Galera next week, just the 2 of us. By June, I have a date with my daughter, another daughter of mine, where she wants to spend time with me, so we're going to do that. So I enjoy things that has something to do with family, and that's bringing health to the family. I just want to double check if I'm answering the question right. So how do they adjust the different love signs? Hindi pala ako question pala yun, no? Sabi ko, bakit parang iba? So I think it's with the journey that through life, you begin to see this appeals to me. And I think there's, for ministry or whatever to do, there's a book, yung entitled What Motivates Us. It's, ang sabi doon, what excites you? The acronym is AMP, A-M-P. Anything that gives us autonomy. M, which gives us mastery. And P, what is closest to our heart, which is passion. And I think it's applicable even in raising up of our kids, that you have to give them AMP. A certain level of autonomy, how to wash dishes, for example. How to clean their room. How to study. How to organize things. M is mastery, that they feel that they are good at it. Because at a certain stage in their lives, they need to know that I can do well, which will prepare them even in the future. And passion. I know that a lot of parents who has a blueprint for the future of their children. Your only option is either be an endoc or pedja, basta doktor, anak na ina kayo. Or maybe there's something that you should be helping that child in pursuing the future. Yung bata pa lang, kapapanganak pa lang, anak, doktor ka. No? So, maybe God has other plans for your child. So, it's a real struggle for us to do that because we know the potential of our children. But maybe we have to be very sensitive to where God is leading us. So again, in doing your passion, make sure that it's God-honoring. But I believe that it should also be fun. Something that you enjoy doing. John 10:10 says, He came that we might have life and live it to the full. It does not speak simply of the present life, but also in the future, and also the journey that we take as people. So let's enjoy what we're doing. Enjoy ministry, enjoy family life, enjoy marriage, enjoy every season, every stage of our lives. Amen? Amen.
No more questions? I promise to handle this question again. If spouse do not like you to serve him, can we help each other? How do you understand this question so we can answer this correctly? Is there another parallel before this? Let me say this. Husband love sign is physical, touchy, and wife love sign is quality time. So how do they adjust? Well, they're different with their different love signs. I think Rose has answered this earlier, and you both answered that earlier. And so I think that's taken care of. Additional?
I just want to add one more thing. If your husband's love language is, is physical touch, you cannot insist on your love language of quality time and tell him, well, that's my love language. That's how I express my love. It doesn't matter. If you want him to feel loved, you must speak the language that he understands. And the language that he understands is physical touch. So it's not a question of, you see, he's the one who must feel loved. So if my aim is to make Lem feel loved, let's make it, maybe it's better this way. His love language is words of affirmation. My love language is service. I can serve him till I drop dead. It will still not make him feel loved unless I really speak to him. The words, I appreciate you. You are doing so well. You preach that message very well. You're a very good father. And really mean it. Hindi yung ano lang ha, yung parang bola-bola lang ha. I have to look for something that I really appreciate in him. That's the one that will really fill his love tank. Because It's not my language that matters, it's his language that matters. So if I want him to feel loved, I have to do what makes him feel loved. Sometimes our mistake is, well, this is my love language. That's why I wash clothes for you, I cook your meal, but that's not what makes him feel loved. What makes him feel loved is if I speak words of affirmation. So I will not reach my goal of making my husband feel loved by insisting on my own love language. It has to be in his love language.
If I would tell her to rest while washing the clothes, she's not happy with that because that's her love language. She's doing it for the family and for me. So different people, different personality, trying to work together so that we'll have a harmonious relationship. Okay, let's go back to this. Okay, my wife is interpreting it this way. What if your spouse, you say,
The words here are, if spouse do not like you to serve him. Maybe what the person is asking is, what do you do if your spouse do not want you to serve him?
well, that's the person's choice. So you have to respect. I think the issue